If I had a yen for every time I had to restart this video, I could buy myself an imported book. Hi, my name is Jade of Juniper. Welcome back. I'm telling you welcome back because telling myself welcome back on my own channel sounds really unnatural and weird, but I know you've still probably been on YouTube and I've been away. Just acknowledging that. Today I will not be doing a writing video or Japan video. I just want to make it really clear so that people can skitter scatter away if you're looking for other content. Today it will be a book review. I want to talk about some books I recently read. I had been in a slump for quite some time. Not even really a slump. I was actually just living my life, and I was not slumping whatsoever. I was actually thriving. It sounds kind of like a weird flex, but I literally just didn't want to pick up my camera and obscure my view of what I was experiencing. So I wasn't actually really in a booktube slump, but essentially, just to make it clear, I do writing content. I do want to do Japan content, but both of those things are a little bit more long form, and writing content is either live videos or also vlogs. I can't really do a sit-down video with writing because I am discovering writing, really, and I don't have much to contribute quite yet as far as advice. There's my own personal experiences, but there are so many fantastic channels, a few that I will link down below if you're looking to get on the writing track, that I would just be kind of verbatim giving you the advice that I had just been given. So I'd rather just link them down below. Again, today, book video. I want to talk about some books I recently read. I have, as of 2023, read 18 books, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. I will not be doing all 18 today. Instead, I'll be cutting that in half, and then hopefully, if I have the gumption to edit this video very lightly because my computer doesn't work, then I'll do the other half another time. I'm working with a smidget of steam and I just want to keep that up. I will also have timestamps down below so that you can skip forward. Hopefully you skipped forward through this intro and you're just already on your way. I will be using Goodreads to give a small summary description and then my own personal opinion. The first book I read was Babel by R.F. Kuang. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Gleanings by Neil Schusterman. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Nettle Bone by T. Kingfisher. I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. Greywaren by Maggie Stiefvater. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. We have Bone Gap by Laura Ruby, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Again, I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I gave 5 out of 5 stars. And then to finish, I read Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove by Roddy Marotra, and I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get Babel out of the way, not because it's not magnificent, but because it is, and I think I was one of the last people to read it. Everyone was talking about it, everyone was enjoying it. There was really silly discourse happening, and I'm not going to acknowledge it. This was a fantastic book. Objectively, even if I hadn't have liked it, I would have still recommended it. Luckily, I did like Babel by R.F. Kuang, so I can not only recommend it, but say I liked it. I'm going to read a very brief part of the synopsis, but it will be my longest of the synopses I give today, because Babel is a lot, and there is no way to condense it because everything, every word, every part of Babel was important. A historical fantasy epic that grapples with student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of language and translation as the dominant tool of the British Empire. An act of translation is always an act of betrayal. Robin Swift, our main character, is an orphan growing up in Canton and is brought to live in London by a mysterious professor. There, he is trained in Latin, ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll at Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. That is a really long synopsis, but it's all the important bits to get you started, and one of the major things that it brings up is translation being an act of betrayal. That is a really strong theme in this book. I was struck by this book in a lot of different ways, but the translation aspect was such an interesting thing to read about, and I have not heard it really talked about in the way that R.F. Kuang talks about it, but it's definitely a stance she has. So as someone who's studying Japanese, I just really appreciated and took in what she was trying to say, and have tried to definitely like apply that to my thinking and learning as I try not to translate things in my head, because there are some words and phrases in Japanese that English doesn't have and vice versa, and the moment that you try to equate the two is the moment you're erasing the culture out of it. Yeah, no, it was just a really emotionally impactful book. The characters were beautifully written. The dynamics between these characters was it was beautiful. It was almost a mistake reading Babel first in the year, because I think it impacted how well I was able to give out 5 stars at the beginning of the month, because I wasn't able to hold it to the same standard, and I had to kind of like let go of standards. Babel was fantastic. I will say that Babel does have a slow beginning, but I wouldn't be daunted by that. Instead, I would enjoy it because it is a buildup of tension and character dynamics that really pays off in the second half, and you will know the moment that you've reached the second half. At one point, you'll think the book is slow, and then you'll be trying to catch your breath because it's going so fast. Because Babel was so good, I tried to go with a favorite author in order to kind of keep my bar high, and so I went with Neil Shusterman's Gleanings, because I absolutely adore the Scythe series. The Scythe series is a series I highly recommend. It's an older series now. It was pretty popular on BookTube a while ago and other book content places. As of now, I would say if you're new and or just like joining the community, or you hadn't have heard of this, Scythe takes place in a dystopian future in which humans have conquered death. Therefore, in order to curb population, they have scythes, which are humans that do what an AI cannot. I think this would be a really interesting topic now because of everything that's going on with AI and the real world. So if you haven't picked up the Scythe series, I recommend it. However, I did give Gleanings 3 stars for a reason. It is 100% supplementary. I thought it had some really interesting messages. I thought some of the messages were kind of just like smeared in your face, and I felt other ones were kind of cringe and like embarrassing, and then others were nuanced and fantastic and more of like dynamics of characters that I either knew or wanted to know about. Just go in with like not a high bar, which is not what I did, and just enjoy the ride, and it is a good ride. If you have read the Scythe series, I recommend it. If you haven't read the Scythe series, I would read the Scythe series before going into Gleanings. I don't think I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't read these, enjoyed these, and is just looking for more. So, what did I read next? I don't remember. I'm on my Instagram. Oh, Nettle Bone. Wow, it's right here in front of me. Okay, I gave this 4.5 stars, but I kind of don't remember why I didn't give it a 5, because I loved everything about it. There's a demonic chicken, there's like a dark fantasy, there's like bits of gore, but it's mixed in with like really good dark humor, and it just was a fantastic read. It gave me cozy fantasy vibes while also being just gnarly. I really am a fan of T. Kingfisher's work now. I want to read more of what they write. I think that literally it's Babel's fault that I gave this 4.5. I would give it a 5 star now if I wasn't being petty, but petty's actually part of my personality. So for right now, this was a 4.5. Oh, what's it about? After years of seeing her sister suffer at the hands of an abusive prince, Mara, the shy, covent-raised third-born daughter, has finally realized that no one is coming to their rescue. No one except Mara herself. Seeking help from a powerful grave witch, Mara is offered the tools to kill a prince if she can complete 3 impossible tasks. I'm going to stop right there and say, yes, this is about Mara saving her sister and saving herself, and it has a lot to do with just family dynamics and going on a quest. The 3 impossible tasks almost have nothing to do with the story. Like, they are at the beginning of a chapter mentioned briefly as she's finishing like the last task. I was really happy with the outcome of one of the tasks because we got an adorable little character. No, like there's really nothing bad I can say about this book, but I don't think the synopsis did justice, and so just add my 2 cents there. So after that, I read Greywaren. This is the final book in the Dreamer trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater, who is one of my all-time favorite authors. This is one of my all-time favorite series, right along up there with the Scythe series. I have the second book physically with me, but I listened to the third book audibly because books are really expensive in Japan. This series follows Ronan Lynch, and a lot of the plot of this series is a little bit of a spoiler for the main series, which is the Raven Cycle series by Maggie Stiefvater. This series is not as good as this series, but this one has my favorite character. And I can't tell you really much of anything about him because it's a spoiler for this series. And if I was to recommend one, I'd recommend this one, not this one. So the Dreamer trilogy is about dreams, and consequences of following orders without asking questions. Just has like a lot of like rebellion and angst in it. I liked some of the talk about art and literature. Overall, there were some really funny punchlines and some really good moments. It definitely doesn't compare to the Raven Cycle series, and I felt like one of the characters in the series was really underwritten and the other one was kind of like overwritten, and I really would have liked those things reversed. So yeah, I'm gonna muddle my way through this review and just say I gave it 4 stars because Maggie Stiefvater really knows how to draw you into good twists and like strong moments of climax, but ultimately it wasn't a favorite of mine, so I just couldn't give it 5 stars no matter how much I wanted to. Yeah, so I finished that. It felt a little anticlimactic to me just because it is my favorite character getting their own series and I wasn't enthralled. It's all Babel's fault. After that, I read Bone Gap because it came up on my Libby app as like something I might like, and it had a bee on the cover, and I didn't read the synopsis because I was kind of on a reading roll at this point, and it paid off because this was a really fantastic book that I would have never picked up otherwise. Thanks, libraries. Everyone knows Bone Gap, that's a place, is full of gaps. Gaps to trip you up, gaps to slide through so you can disappear forever. So when young, beautiful Rosa went missing, the people of Bone Gap weren't surprised. After all, it wasn't the first time that someone had slipped away and left Finn and Sean O'Sullivan on their own. This follows mainly one of those 2 brothers and him trying to find Rosa, a girl who went missing and was a strong and important part of their family. This has a beautiful found family dynamic, and the town of Bone Gap seems like a completely normal town the entire way through the book until like the dead end. I actually would say that this is a very unique Hades and Persephone retelling mixed in with like a missing person mystery. And it was just also just a fascinating character study. Most of the book, I kind of felt like nothing was happening, and yet I was like interested the entire time. I was intrigued. I was intrigued by everyone and everything that was happening, and it was really well written. So I was mostly just confused in a really good way. And then I got to the end and was like, wow, that was nice. 4 out of 5 stars, but it still stuck with me. I'm still thinking about this book, so I would recommend it. I think it's great. What I read next? Oh, another T. Kingfisher book. This was What Moves the Dead. Okay, so What Moves the Dead is a Fall of the House of Usher retelling. That's an Edgar Allan Poe classic, and I don't think you need to know that story going in to just enjoy the creepy, weird vibes of this. It feels like a haunted house story. It feels very much so like you don't know if it's going to be sci-fi or fantasy. It feels creepy the entire way through. It also had awesome gender inclusivity and a non-binary main character. I loved how it was dealt with. There was a different pronoun structure because it was in a fantasy world. I liked how it was incorporated. It didn't feel like I needed to know everything about this world to enjoy it, and I just enjoyed it thoroughly. It's such a short book, I would struggle to not give away the entire plot without just saying more of the same. By this time, my Babel high had worn off, so I was willing to give 5 stars again. Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. I'd been slowly making my way through just as they came up on my Libby app, the Shauna McGuire Wayward Children, and that has been a mixed bag. I would actually like to talk about it as a whole because I have finished the series and how I would have wished I had read it. And there's probably millions of videos out there about how to read it, but I didn't look at any of those videos. So I just read them in order, and that's not how I would do it. But just this book all on its own as a standalone, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, I gave 5 stars. I thought it was really cool. It was so short, but it felt like it was just jam-packed. And it was very different from the other books I was reading, so that also really helped. Twin sisters, Jack and Jill, were 17 when they found their way home and were packed. Oh, that's a confusing way to summarize this if this is a standalone. Okay. So you can read these by themselves. They don't have to be read within the series. So I feel like I already dislike this summary. I'm going to stop. It's not that complicated. So 2 sisters who are twins, Jack and Jill, are being raised as a set, and their identities are taken away from them at a very early age by their parents, who literally just wanted to have and take care of twins as kind of a commodity, and not as people. I really loved how children were talked about in this, because there's so many people out there who say that they don't like children, and I'm like, okay, so just tell me you don't like people. Why would you attack a marginalized group of like underserved, undertaken care of, underloved? I don't get it. I don't get it, but I also work with children. That's fine. Point being, that kind of person was raising twin girls and decided their identities for them, and essentially this was these two twin girls going through a magical door, ending up on the other side, getting to choose who they were and experimenting with who they were, and they turned out kind of to be little monsters, but they get to be themselves. It is part of the Wayward Children series, where every other book, children go through doors and are kind of like thrust into a world of not their making, but is kind of made a little bit for them or what they might need. With Jack and Jill, I found their character arcs really fascinating, creepy and aesthetically pleasing and interesting, and it wasn't the cookie cutter idea of like what twins would be like, or even sisters. I think probably one of my favorites out of the series, and I would recommend it to someone who didn't want to pick up the entire series as one of the first ones to try, just so you get a feeling of what the worlds are like, and that they can be so different from our own. Okay, sorry if this is at a different angle. My phone died, but the next book I read was Jennette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died. This is a memoir written and narrated by Jennette McCurdy. You might know her from iCarly as well as Sam and Cat. She was really large and impactful to a lot of people in my generation, as well as I'm sure following generations, because it's been on streaming services and different platforms. She is also not just an actress, but an author. And I think that that's an important thing to point out, because this story is really about the fact that she didn't have a choice in her acting career, and that she was kind of thrust into it at a very young age by her mother, and all of the abuses she suffered by both her mother, the industry, just overall what she had to go through. And I would just say to go in with a lot of caution for trigger warnings, especially for eating disorders. There is abuse, emotional, psychological, physical, sexual. There's lots of forms of abuse that happen in this book, and it is heartbreaking. But the on-page eating disorders I have understood from people was really, really triggering. Jennette McCurdy does not pull punches as far as her experience goes. I think that this can be healing for some people, but mostly just an understanding for people who have not had to deal with eating disorders, so that they have a clear perspective of what people who suffer from ED are going through. I would not necessarily recommend this to someone who struggles with ED. That being said, she also manages to pack a lot of humor and just charming authenticity into her story. She just seems like a lovely person. I always tend to lean towards giving a higher star rating to a memoir, because I think everyone's story is important, and the fact that they had the bravery to put it down on paper and then expel it to the world, it is important. So I do give it 5 stars. I would always recommend reading about someone else's experience, whether it's something that interests you or not. Someone else's experience can help you just understand other people that are walking around among you. I really enjoyed Jennette McCurdy's book. Definitely go into it doing your own research. And there's plenty of places if you just want the juicy gossip of like how Nickelodeon was shitty to its actresses and actors and kid actors and everyone like that. Like there's plenty of articles and like YouTube videos online. You can get the juice somewhere else. If you want the experience of someone's life, I would go towards her book, but otherwise, I think you're good. And then finally, to finish us up, the last book I read was Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove. This is by Rati Mehrotra, and I actually received this in like a Twitter giveaway. It's the uncorrected bound manuscript. The final cover hadn't come out yet, and I thought that was really cool. It did take me almost a year to get to it because I was moving to a foreign country, and when she first asked for my address, I didn't have one yet. So, I was thrilled to finally get to it and very happy I picked it up. This is the final cover, and I'll go ahead and just display it there, but what is Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove about? Tatiana's role in the kingdom of Chandela has always been clear. Become an advisor and protector of the crown prince, bound to the queen of Chandela through a forbidden soul bond that saved her when she was a child. Tatiana has grown up in the royal family and become one of the best guardswomen the Garuda have ever seen. That is a large majority of the book. Tatiana trying to find out who she is, how this soul bond was created, and her trying to find her role not in the royal family, but just her role in the world. I really liked Chandela, like as a world building exploration and just like the mythologies that were inside of this book. I really enjoyed. The bones of this book were my favorite parts. Yeah, all the mythology, all of the world building, a lot of the plot, many of the tropes, totally up my alley. I went through it pretty quickly. I did not connect to the characters. I didn't really connect with the romance. I just felt like there were so many moments that were overdone or kind of like drawn out with the romance, and I didn't care, so it made those moments slower for me. But I was always interested to know what was happening in the actual context. In the context of like the plot, I just felt like we were really kind of droning on a bit with the subplot having to do with the romance, which is not a normal take for me. I usually love a romantic subplot. I get all mushy and gushy and shit, so I don't know what happened here. I also felt like we kind of missed a lot of found family moments that I would have liked explored longer. I would put a content warning for gore in this. There's some pretty ridiculously gory moments that I didn't expect. I don't mind that, but as a warning to you, if that is something you mind, that is something I would be wary of. I ended up giving this 3 stars, and I am glad that I read it. It was enjoyable. I just don't think that it made a strong impact on me or like bring it into the fold of my like favorite books or anything like that moving forward. So 3 stars is kind of where that landed for me, and I feel pretty okay about that. Okay, so that is going to be it for this wrap up recently read video. I just kind of need to get, what is the term? My feet wet, my hands warm. I just needed to kind of dip my toe in. I needed to try and make a video. After several really shoddy attempts, I think I got there. I think I have something that I could actually throw onto the internet and be like, that's fine. If you've read any of these books, tell me what you thought of them, and if you have any recommendations for books you think I might like, I'm always open to adding them to my TBR, and I would love to just know how you're doing in general. Please, yeah, leave a comment down below, like this video if you liked it. If you don't have to dislike it, but you're more than entitled to. And I hope to see you soon, most likely for some reading and writing sprints, but maybe I can get this next video up with enough smidgen of steam that I've built up, and either way, I'll see you soon in some capacity. I'm done rambling now. Bye! I stopped filming and then started talking as if I was filming. Fun. This series is nonsense. So anything I say could be true. Am I getting hives? I'm like so nervous talking about my favorite series in a not stellar way. Oh, my battery's dying. Let me just...